morning. Let's get started. So the application is running. Here we are. And this is product list component. Yesterday we faced the issue with respect to cores, but yesterday we made a push and that push is deployed. Now we are able to make a call. So if you want to find out what calls are going on, hit refresh, go to your network tab. And if you filter by XHR, is your web service request. You can check here the product's call and go to headers and you'll get more information such as what is the URL and what is the status code, what type of method, and you have what is the remote address that you're making to. It's a HTTPS, so this is the URL of our API that is deployed. I mean, that is IP address and the port is 443 because it is HTTPS. And then we have some request headers and response headers also. So one request header that would be sent is by default. We are not adding, all these headers are added by default. I believe content type. Okay, anyway, there is no content type header. But if you want, you can add some headers if you want to. We'll see how we can do that because when we want to send a token, and that token would be sent as part of header. So that's when we'll learn how to send headers. Response headers is something that is sent by the server. For instance, X powered by is the header that is sent express. So this is usually added by Express to, this is just more of a kind of advertisement for their product saying that, okay, this website or this API is developed by Express. If you want, you can pretty much strip off this header, and people for security reasons, they strip it off because they don't want to expose their technology. So they just strip off this header like that. And when you go to preview, you can find the response. What is the response that is coming in? Pretty much everything. And you have response in string format and then timings and all those things. So these developer tools are very handy if you want to find out more what's going on internally. Anyhow, once that is done, you have your data bound to HTML elements. Okay, so let's analyze where we stand with respect to the organization. So the organization of the application is something like this. We have this huge component by the name app. Inside this app, I put another component which is product list component. So app is a root level component and product list is a child. So this is how the current structure of the application is. Now go back to product list. We'll focus a few minutes on improving this code. So this product list is actually having the data, holding the data, and then it is presenting the data. So this is kind of you're breaking the principle. Actually, this component is doing two things. Probably we can outsource this presentation to some other component rather than overloading this component with two responsibilities, holding the data and presenting the data. So what I want is this product list component to hold the data and not worry about how to present the data. Here we are actually presenting it. We're having H3 tag and some divs and so on. I want this responsibility to go in some other component, and that component won't care about the data that is coming in. Rather, it would be only worried about presenting. So let's see what that means, and we'll see. If you don't understand, we'll try to put again on the paint and explain. So first thing, I want to get rid of this. I want this responsibility to go some other component by the name app product. This product hasn't been created yet, but I want this to be app product. So what I'm saying is, okay, I'm holding the data products, and as many products as I have, I want that many time this app product to be consumed. It's like I'm in ng4. So let's go ahead and create app product. I'll be using Angular CLI to generate a component. Say ng C. G is short for generate, C is for component, and name of the component product. And I don't want a style sheet file. I don't want template file. This will create a template file by default. So I want inline template and inline styles. And I don't want spec. It creates a test file also. I don't want even that test file. So I want only one file, and this is how you run a command. So it has created this product component.ts file, and it has updated the module because your component has to go inside a module. So it updated that file. Okay. Now go to hit refresh, go to your product folder. Here it is, product.component.ts. And I just want this to be a heading product, and all the unnecessary stuff, I'll get rid of that to keep it clean. Here it is. Save this. I don't need even styles. Now come back. See, now as many times as you have products in the list, probably our page size by default it is 10. So you will notice 10 product components. So inspect that and you'll come to know. So you have one div, and inside that you have app product. Inside that you have another app product. See, another one, and so on, like that. So now you are kind of delegating the responsibility. If you notice app product list, it has only logic to get the data. It doesn't really care how to show the data. Presentation is responsibility of some other component. And we are not yet done with that presentation. So I'm going to just paste whatever I've copied. Okay. Now the biggest question is, where does this product come from? Because here in product list component, it is coming from a web service call. I cannot make a web service call in this component to get the data. Rather, this product component should come from somewhere. So stop worrying about uh, the data at this moment. I'll hard code it. Let's copy from, okay, let's copy here, say brand, model, price, and we have last updated. I'll just go with date out now. And whether it is in stock or not, here it is. So this is a product that I've created, and save this. Here I have my data shown and 10 times. But the problem is obvious. Here hard-coded data and you have 10 similar products. And that doesn't make much sense, but at least we made some progress. There's presentation component and container component. So the component which holds the data is called a container, which is responsible for fetching the data and holding the data, while the smaller components, maybe more than one, they are called presentation component because they are responsible for presenting the data like this. So this is the structure of our application at this moment. We have app component, we have product list component, and then inside that we have smaller product components, more than one, like that. Okay, so the problem, coming back to the problem. So I'll create one function, something like this, and it returns a plus b. So if I invoke this function every time, I get the same result. You invoke it once, you invoke it 1,000 times. The problem with this function is these hard-coded values. So we are in a similar situation at this moment. The product component has this hard-coded data, and that's why we are seeing a similar output every time you invoke this function or this component. So what we would do to make this function dynamic? So we actually rewrite this function. Instead of hard coding the values of A and B, we ask for from the consumer. We say that, okay, I don't know what are A and B. You just pass me and I'll calculate and give the value. So now this function is going to behave a little bit dynamic like this. So something similar we need to do. We need to change this product information to be an input parameter, the same way we did for the add function. So I'm going to use at input. This is the decorator. It is part of core library, import it. And I'm saying that this product information is not available in this product component. Rather, it will come from somewhere else outside world, from the somewhere, not from this component. So that's all this component will have. Now we will break if I try to run this application, or you may not see any output like this. So nothing is shown and we are getting an error and so on. The reason is we are not passing this product. When you're calling this app product component from product list component, we are not passing the data. How to pass the input parameter? Here you'll say product and product. Okay. So there's a lot of confusion. These name app product, product, product. So just change it to prod. Here it is. So I'm saying, okay, this product, I'm binding a property. So this is property binding. Whenever you have any input parameters, this would become an attribute to that component. So this is an attribute. I am binding it. This is property binding. And name of this product is similar, nothing but the name of the input parameter. And I'm passing the value prod from the products. Each time it takes one product and pass it to this app product component. With this change, now our product component is dynamic and it should take the value from this array. Okay, now it is dynamic. Actually, it is because we have some lot of junk data, so you're not able to see any difference here because probably we have run a lot of uh, load test, so that's why there is dummy data. But actually, it is picking the items dynamically. So when we add some new products, when we reach to that stage, we will see. So the proof is that you run the API. I don't exactly remember the URL, so let's copy from here, run the API. All has iPhone 8, and all those things like this. Okay, so that's about presentation and container component. It's very important. Without this, your application will still work. But again, it's kind of you're making things ugly and you're overloading your component with a lot of responsibilities. So make sure identify wherever the pattern comes into picture, container and presentation component. So try to write smaller components. Smaller components are always encouraged rather than having a huge monolithic component. Let me push these changes. Okay, so that was the improvement that we made. That's one improvement. And the second improvement, let's come back to product list component and this code. So any HTTP service call or business logic should not be kept here. Rather, it should go in some other type of file, not in the components. So components should not, again, be dealing with the HTTP service calls. Rather, they should be just calling some function and getting the data. So let me create one file in the shared folder and say product.service.ts. That type of the file is service. We have services in Angular, or sometimes they are called providers. Both are same. Let's create. They are nothing but a class. So I'm going to export a class, say product service, and I'll have a get method that returns me an observable here. So I'll just cut this and paste it This .http is needed. So I'll have this in constructor. So remember I told you the shorthand global properties that I'm using here. Private HTTP. If I omit private, I need to have a private variable here, HTTP, and then I need to say this dot HTTP equals to HTTP like this. Let's import this HTTP client. So rather than having these 2 or 3 lines of code, I just want to make this private. Get rid of this, get rid of this, like this. This is more cleaner way of writing global properties. This is global just because you have private. You can make it public, and I don't see any reason to make it public. I don't want this HTTP to be a public property. Unless there is a valid reason, you wouldn't do that. Okay, so this is your product service. And now it's very easy to call this method because end of the day, it's a class. So you can call this method from your component class. So how can I do that? It's very simple. I'll say SVC, new product service. And this product service needs HTTP. So I'll pass it from here. Add an import statement, and then this svc.get is the method that I should be calling to get the data. This svc.get end of the day returns an observable, and I'm subscribing to that observable. And what remains, the remaining code is unchanged. Come back. Okay, looks like I've broken something. It's compiled successfully. Go to console to check errors if there are any. Okay, still we are getting the data and we are making a web service call, but the code is now cleaner and we are following some conventions. We're not making web service calls from the component, and component actually is not aware of what's going on, whether it is a web service call or whether it is some file input output operation, whatever it is. What it knows is, okay, it has a service and it has to call a get method on it and subscribe to it and get the result. That's all it knows, and it seems to be working fine. Okay, it is good, but it's kind of we are breaking another principle here, that is single responsibility principle. So let me open a notepad or something like that, or open some project which is already created. So let me explain you the problem with this code is this code is ugly. It makes it hard to test your code. Unit testing I'm talking about, automated unit tests, and this is breaking one principle, that is single responsibility. So let me create one TS file, say index.ts. So it's like you have this class, say wrap. So you have started, assume you have started a business, say Subway wrap. So this class depends on some other classes because wrap is combination of other stuff. You have other ingredients such as bread. So I assume you have a bread class and it has a constructor which is at this moment doesn't have any parameters. And then you may have some sausages. Probably I'll go with sausage. And this has a constructor too. And then you may need some, what else? Veggies. Okay. So this is your initial business. And how would you make a wrap? A wrap is nothing but a combination of your bread. You create bread object, and then you take your sausages, and the same way probably you'll take your veggies, some vegetables, and this is how you prepare and you return something that's not very important here. But anyway, this is your wrap, and which is dependent on three other objects. Wrap itself is an object. So this is well and good and it works fine and your restaurant is going good. Now you've decided to add different kinds of bread. So you're asking customer what type of bread he wants. You'll say type or say integer. I'm sorry, it's not integer. Say type, kind of a number. So you're asking 0, 1, 2 or whatever it is. It has to be enum, honestly speaking. But to keep things simple, I'm going with number. Say 0, maybe wheat bread or Italian or whatever it is, 0, 1, 2 you have. And now with this, can you see that your this also needs to modify. So you are modifying this bread and this class also needs modification because parameter change. Okay, you'll come and modify it. And this is what single responsibility principle is. Let me write what that principle means actually. It says a class should not have more than one reason to change. That's what the principle says. Now, this wrap class has two reasons to change. One is maybe you're adding something here itself. That is a valid change. In future, maybe you're adding this console log statement. This is one modification that is allowed. You cannot get away from that. That is a valid modification. The second modification is its dependencies are changing and you are modifying this class. So something else is changing and you're changing this class. So for instance, now you're asking for the quantity of the vegetables. Now you have modified this veggies, the dependency, and you have to modify even this class. Now this class has more than one reason to change. Probably four reasons there are four reasons. There could be four reasons why this wrap class can change, and that is breaking the SRP. And that it's kind of again ugly that whenever you modify something, you're modifying its dependencies or the class that it is dependent on and all those things. And rather than doing that, what I can do it, okay, I won't worry about how to create an object. I'll ask somebody to pass me that object. For instance, I'll say B is of type bread, B is of type veggies, and S is of type sausages, whatever it is. Now, no matter what changes now here, this class remain unchanged. It's like you're taking back the control and this class remains unchanged because it doesn't really care how to create an object of it. So there would be another factory who would be passing this objects to this wrap class and to prepare a wrap, but at least you have made some improvement here. Rather than using new operator, creating an object yourself, you're asking for dependency. You're saying that, okay, I don't know how to create objects of it. Give me objects. Don't ask me to create objects, rather give me entire object. So now whatever it wants to do it, it can do it. It may have some methods on top of B, or it may have some properties on top of bread and veggies and so on. It can get things work. So if you notice here, this is the same problem we have in our product list component. So let me just do a control Z. This is where we are actually. This new operator, no matter which language you're using, this new operator is kind of ugly way of creating an object. So whenever you're creating an object using new operator, you should reconsider that. You should think and you should make sure that whatever you're doing is right because this can create problems. One problem is it makes it hard to unit test because when unit testing your code, you will not worry about other files or other classes. Rather, you'll be only worried about this class because that's unit testing. You're testing a piece of code, not everything. So in that case, if you have this kind of code, this is private code. You cannot do anything from the test because test is outside environment of this file. But if you have something like this, be bread, this is not private. This is rather a parameter that you will be passing to this class. You can pass a fake bread object while testing it. We'll talk more about faking and all those things. But at this moment, what you should understand is this makes it easy to test your code. A new operator is ugly. So you should always think about it. And if there is a way out, you should rather not use that new operator. Let's get back to our code. Here, this is what we are doing. So what I'll do is I'll get rid of this. I'll say private SVC of type product service. And the same logic I applied here, what I did here. I'm making it a parameter of constructor. And this is called dependency injection. And more to be more explicit, it is called constructor injection. There are a couple of other ways you can inject your dependencies, and constructor injection is most popular. So you're injecting the dependencies of this component class inside constructor. So this SVC is now an object, and you can pretty much call svc.get. So the code is improved and we are in line with single responsibility principle, and this HTTP is nowhere used. So I'll get rid of that like this. This is clean. Now let's see whether our application will work or not. Go to console. Now you should see an error. It says some error. It says not no injector, no provider for product service. So the problem here is who is creating an object of this component class? Here, wrap, I'll create a class of wrap by passing, say, new bread. New bread by passing, say, type 0, like this. Here, this is not what I'm doing here. I don't have control over creating an object of this product list component. Rather, Angular creates that object. It's a component class. Angular creates that. So who would be injecting this dependency, or who would be passing this dependency? In this case, here I am passing it, but here Angular should do that. So that is, you should explicitly tell Angular that, okay, this is what is going to be an injectable, add an import statement, and this is how you do it. One thing. And second thing, I told you, every type of file that you create pretty much in Angular has to go inside a module. So let's go to app.module and add it. Can I add it to the declarations array? I cannot add it. Rather, I should add it inside another array providers, product list component. Save this. Okay, still we have an error. No provider for product service. Probably this is not, okay, I'm sorry, this is not product list component. It's product service. Add an import statement. Product service is not defined. See, now we are back up and running, and we are not even breaking single responsibility principle. This is how you code it. So let's come back one more time. First thing I said, constructor injection. Every dependency that you have in Angular, you'll go with this constructor dependency. You can use new operator, but that's ugly way. So avoid that. And now go to product service.ts. Here, I made it injectable using injectable decorator. So this is one way of saying Angular to Angular that, okay, I want this class to be an injection. This is going to be dependency of some components or some other service. I want this to be an injection. So this injection doesn't necessarily has to be a dependency of a component class. It can be a dependency of another service. Services can also have dependencies, and it can be an injection. So if you closely notice here, isn't HTTP client is also an injection? It is. So your HTTP client is also a provider or a service, and which has an injectable decorator on it. Let's hit F12 and see if we can see something. Okay, honestly, I don't notice anywhere an injectable decorator, but pretty much you can read this code here. So in the comment section, they say that it's an injectable class. It's available as an injection. So that's why we are able to use it as an injection. So that's about services. Again, pretty much we are not yet done. There is more about services, but one improvement we made is this one. So why do you need services? One thing is to make HTTP service calls. Every HTTP service call that you make should go in your service. One thing. And second thing, to write business logic. You may have a lot of business logic in enterprise level application. So every business logic, whatever you write, will go inside your product service, not in component. So components should be clean and should have very less amount of code. And any business logic that you want to write should go inside your product service. Or I mean to say in generally in service. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and try to create some components. I'm sorry, some services. So I'll go to shared folder and try to create a console logger. Okay, before creating that, let's talk about one more concept. This service is called, this service is a singleton class. What do I mean by singleton? Singleton means there can be only one object in memory at any time. This is actually a design pattern. You might have already know in Java or C Sharp, but by default, your product service is singleton. So when you first invoke this product service or when you first use it, that's when an object would be created and there can be only one product service. So this product service may be a dependency of multiple components. That can be a variable possibility. So assume that you have component 1, 2, and 3. And this product service is, so component 1 is accessing a property, say my property, on this object. And it has written something, some value to 10. Initially it was 0 and now it is written to 10. So when trying to access the component 1 from component 2 is trying to read that property. In that case, the value that would be seen by component is 10. The reason is there is only one object in the memory. Whoever is modifying it, the data would always be available to all the components. So this makes it an excellent candidate for data sharing. So if you want to share data between two components, what you can do, you can use services. We'll talk about that later, but just to let you know that products services are also a great way of sharing the data between the components. So if you have multiple components that you want to share the data, so you set the property using one component and you get the property using another component, and that's kind of a data sharing. So you're kind of communicating between two components. You're establishing a components. So I'm not sure whether you have noticed this or not. We have already established a kind of a communication between these components. We have product list component, and inside that we have product component, and we are kind of communicating between these two components with the help of this. So using at input, you communicate with children. We have product list component, something like this, and inside that you have simple product components. And you are communicating with this with the help of at input decorator. You're passing the data. And this at input will only work when you have parent and child relationship. But when you have sibling, we don't have siblings yet, but that there can be siblings. So where both product list component and this component are at the same level, you cannot use at input decorator. So in that case, you have no other way but use this product service to share or communicate between these two siblings. Okay, if this is confusing, let's not worry about it. We'll come back and see this with an example. But the important thing to remember is product service is a singleton object. And this first time, whichever component is accessing this product service, that's when an object would be created, and that object would be shared among the other components, whoever requested. Now come back and try to create some services. So I'm going to say console.logger.ts. Actually, this is also a service. Probably if you want to have service, you can go ahead and add service as a suffix. So let's create a class first and export it. And this will have some logging, say warn. This is going to just show a warning in the console. A simple method, and you have error. This is going to show an error in the console. Console.error, and show some message. In the same way, I would like to have a log, console.log message. And I want this to be an injection. So I'll say injectable. This is a decorator. Here it is. A simple service is created. Now I need to register this with app module. Go ahead and register this here in the provider. Console.log, console logger, add an import statement. Pretty much we are done. Now I can consume this component. So I'll go to home page, app.home, no, home component.ts. Somewhere here. Okay, this all code is not necessary, so I'll just get rid of this. I'll just say home page. I'll get rid of everything here. I'll have a constructor. I'll do injection, say logger, console logger type. And here, as soon as the component is loaded, I just want to warn something. Component took a lot of time to load. Something like this. So this logger.warn is going to write a message on the console. So this is one message that I want to do print. And let's go to our product list component. Here in the constructor, I want to inject logger, console logger. And I'm going to say logger dot error, say dummy error. Okay, simple. I have a console logger service and I'm consuming it in two components. That's it. I'll go to my app component and try to consume home component also. Save this. Now pretty much we have our component took a lot of time to load message. That's a warning. And then we have some error, it says dummy error. When you notice here, it will give you a stack trace. So that's well and good. Now your business came up. So this project went live. Your business came up, said that, okay, I this is good. It is logging to the console, but I want this logs to be on the file. I want this to be logged to a file, not on the console. So what you do is you probably the ugliest thing that you can do is you come back and you modify this code here. But if you're a little bit smart, you'll try to create a new class. You'll say file logger.ts, something like that. This is at least a better way than to going and modifying the existing class, because name of the class is console logger, and if you're modifying it, you need to modify the file name, or if you just modify the code, it doesn't make much sense. The file name is different, and the inside what you have, the logic is completely different. Yep, people may do it, but that's not the way how it should be done. So I'll create a file logger, and this is going to be again pretty much same as console logger. So I'm just going to say file logger, an injection. So use injectable decorator. Here I'm going to have a warn message. So I don't want to again introduce the complexity of file and all those things. So I'm just going to say file plus message, something like that, just to differentiate that it is logging to file. Here, the concept is not really important. The concept is important, not the feature or functionality. So we don't really care whether it is logging to the file or database at this moment. What we really care is something else. So I'm going to say log and error. Just to differentiate with the console logger class, I'm appending file here. Assume that this is logging to file. Go to app module and finish the development of this provider. It is finished only when you add it to the module. Otherwise, it is not really usable. So I'll say file logger. Okay, I've added this. Now your business said that, okay, this logging, whatever is being logged onto the console, has to go on a file. So one thing what you can do is you'll go to product list component or home component wherever you're using console logger. You will change this logger type to file logger. Yeah, that works. That was one way. But if you have already consumed this console logger 100 times in 100 places, and that is going to be a lot of work. Again, a manual work. So you have to be a little bit more smarter here than just modifying the existing provider. So for that, go to app module. Here you'll say that, okay, wherever I'm using console logger, I want to swap the implementation. You will say provide console logger. You will say use class file logger. Pretty simple. Here you're saying that wherever console logger is being asked, provide file logger object, not console logger object. This is what is called uh, runtime polymorphism in Java or C Sharp. So you'll have interfaces there to swap the implementation at runtime. You can easily swap the implementation. Here my implementation is file logger, and I'm saying that, okay, whoever is asking for console logger, just change it with file logger. And your home component remain unchanged. Your app component or product list component remain unchanged. In 100 places wherever you have consumed remain unchanged. The only change that you have made is in app module, and that is acceptable. One line of code is not a big deal. You have added a new file and you have changed this. And you're swapping the implementation. And this is very, very powerful for writing pluggable softwares. This is very, very a key concept, you can call it. And this is nothing but runtime polymorphism in Java or object-oriented languages. Now see, they are file logging. It looks like a console logger here if you notice, but it's not actually. The object is of type file logger. Okay, any questions on this? And this is very important concept. Of course, kind of maybe a little more for a beginner, but it's good to know concept. Let me know if you have any questions so far. So providers or services are singletons. That's what we have learned. And they are injections and they can be swapped. The implementation can be easily swapped with the help of this logic or this syntax. Okay, let's go ahead. And we have few more minutes, probably 10 more minutes. Let's try to again improve the code. So always, whenever you're working, even with real world application, try to again spend some time refactoring your code. And that has to be a regular task. So you'll work on features and then end of that feature, probably you'll try to improve your code quality. And that is important. And that can be only possible if you do it in regular intervals. It won't happen after 1 year. So you have written all a project in ugly way, and now if you want to improve the code quality, it becomes a nightmare. So always periodically try to improve that. Now let's try it here in Paint and see how our project is organized at this moment. So we have this app module, and this module holds my components such as home component, product list, and product. Probably three or four components that I have. And apart from that, even it holds my product service, my console logger, and my file logger. Apart from this, it even has, if you remember, time pipe that we have created like this. So these are the things that they are going inside a container. I don't like this because home component, product list, and product, they are good. But this is kind of a shared logic. I don't want to keep this shared logic in this module. Rather, I want to create another container and move that logic there. I want this entire stuff to go inside that module, and I want to name that module shade module. If you find a better name, definitely you should use that one. But I would like to go with this name, and I want this shade module to be a dependency of app module. Without this shade module, your app module will not run and should not run. Of course, it will not anyway run because you're moving all the necessary pieces to your separate module. So this is what current refactoring, what I would like to go with. Okay, go ahead. In the shade folder, I'll create a module. So I'm going to say shade.module.ts. First export a class, and this is going to be a module. So ng module decorator is needed. Import that, and now you will have declarations. You will have providers. Providers are nothing but services, and declarations are nothing but view related component stuff, like anything that related to views. For instance, your components are related to views, your pipes are related to views, and your directives, which we haven't really yet created, but will create in future. All these three types of files go inside declarations, while providers are nothing but your services. So I'm just going to grab my providers. Let's go to app module, get rid of this providers here. Actually, this will not have any providers. So let's cut this, make it an empty array, and paste it here. Add import statements. Here it is. Now this is clean, and we are not yet done with that. Anyway, we'll go with this one first. We are moving providers. Go step by step, and now your application should break. Yes, it is breaking. The easy error message is no provider for console logger. Now it's not able to find console logger because you moved your console logger or product service to this module, and this link you have not yet made this link. It's kind of a adding a dependency. So how would you add a dependency? Go to your app module, and you have already added some dependencies such as browser, forms, and HTTP client module, and so on. One more is shade module. And this shade module, add an import statement. It's a custom module that is created by me, while HTTP client and forms, all these are inbuilt modules. Doesn't matter. All of them, end of the day, all of them are modules. Now your app module will not run without these four dependencies. That's what it means. So save this. With this one change, now our app should be up and running. Okay, if it is not, probably I might have missed something. It says no provider for console logger. Didn't I save it properly? Okay, that was a saving issue. But anyhow, at least I'm getting my application up and running. This is where we stand. And one last thing we would like to do is move this time pipe. This is also shared logic. I don't want this time pipe to stay in my app module. Rather, I want it to be in shared module. So go to app module and make sure you are removing this unused import statements. Unfortunately, this Visual Studio Code is not in a position to tell you that these are unused import statements. So you have to figure them out and you have to remove them. So what are the unused import statements at this moment? This product service console and file logger. Clean them up. And this time pipe, it's not going to be here. Clean that. Get rid of this time pipe. Save this. Now your application will break because it won't find the time pipe. Come here, you'll see a runtime error here. Time pipe could not be found. Yeah, that's a valid error because it's not part of this module. Go to shared module and add it to the declarations. Come back here and still this application is broken and you see the same error. The reason is by default, this time pipe is private and you need to export it. And that is only for view related components or view related stuff. It needs an extra export statement. You're telling that, okay, whatever is here, I have time pipe, I'm exporting it, making it publicly available. By default, your components, your directives, and your pipes are only accessible in this module. But time pipe is accessed in product list component, and that list component belongs to some other module. So you need to add this export statement to make it publicly available outside of that module. Now we have everything up and running and the code seems to be clean and this is the structure. So you should also do the same thing. Try to divide your code into modules and how would you isolate based on their duty? So here it is more of a, like a shared stuff. So the advantage of dividing stuff into modules is if somebody in your company is asking for this product service, this time pipe, because it is truly reusable and generic, you can pretty much plug this out module and give it to your other projects. So you cannot give file by file. Rather, you club everything and you provide a module. So when you provide a module, they can add an import statement in their project for this module and they can consume pretty much whatever is inside this module. So it makes it truly reusable and truly shareable across your company or maybe even on the internet if your stuff is truly reusable. If it is generic enough that the community can use it, you can pretty much share this. So that's another advantage. One advantage that you get is you're structuring your project. Another advantage that you get is you can easily share this module and its stuff, whatever this module contains. Okay, that's about the modules and services. We'll stop here and tomorrow we'll talk about something else, probably routing. But let me know if you have any questions.